This is the lesson where we're going to show you how you can play sounds, MP3 files, using JavaScript. I've created a brand new folder called Sound. I've added in 3 different MP3s. So we've got a bark, we've got a cougar, and we've got a lion. So we're on an animal theme for this lesson. We're going to be using the JavaScript method where we can create using the HTML audio element. We can scroll down to where the examples are. We've got a variable horn where we create a new audio object, so just as we did with the date in JavaScript, specifying where the file is and the file that we want to utilize, and then we can play the file. You can get also information in regards to that particular element. So we see that we are still creating that same object, but we can get duration, pause, muted, and volume. Let's copy this out and we're going to bring it into our code. And I'm going to update this to match where our MP3 files are. So remember, we do have a folder called sound. So I'm going to link to those files. And we do have an MP3 called bark. So that's MP3. We can save that. And instead of horn, we're going to use the variable name bark, add event listener. So we're making sure that the data is loaded. And this is a short form for function with newer formats of JavaScript. So we can bring it back into the function format as well as previously. And instead of horn, we'll just get the duration of this particular clip. So when we reload, and I'll console log out the value of duration. Also going to shrink the side menu there, and we'll clean it up a bit using the brackets beautifier. So when we refresh, we see that's the duration of that particular clip. And as mentioned here, we can get paused, muted, volume, and so on. Muted, so that's bark. And you can see all of the values that are going to be contained within bark. And if we output muted, we can see that muted is false, so it's not muted. Next, let's add in some additional elements on the page so we can play that particular sound. I'm going to set up a button, and this is just going to be a regular button, and we'll just call it play using JavaScript. So I'm going to use const, and I can also use const for the bark object because that's not going to change. I'll call it button using document query selector. Select the button element. And we're going to add an event listener on that button. So I'm going to update this to be button, add event listener. The event listener that we're listening for is click. And if it gets clicked, then we're going to see all of those values. So we get false still. And that means that once we click it, we can also invoke play. So we can play the sound. So we've got our dog barking sound. If you try to load it without the element, the MP3 being loaded, you could encounter some errors and some issues. So it is advised that usually you have a trigger to trigger off that playing of whatever sound you're trying to invoke. So go ahead and try this out for yourself. You can use the MP3s that I've included within the course, as well as you can use your own MP3s. Set up a play button, create a new audio object that links to wherever the file is located, the MP3 file is located, and then when you click your play button, go ahead and play your MP3 file in JavaScript, using JavaScript within your browser. Try it out for yourself. And coming up, we're going to extend on what we've learned in this lesson, and we're going to do a whole bunch more with the audio and sounds.